was talking about the thermal mass of the concrete foundation of your own house.
Yes.
And I just thought maybe just to direct you back onto airtightness, and just think about some of the key areas for your own house. Where do you think you're losing most of your air?
Most of my air is going through my windows. They all need replacing. I'm also losing a lot of air through my loft. My existing house, it hasn't got a traditional roof. It's almost got a chalet-style roof. So there's one section of it I can't get to. I've got to gain access to get to it, to get air tightness in there. So it's going to be there's different types of air membrane in my house. I'm actually going to use some paint because there's some areas I can get to on spray, but I can't actually physically get to, but I can spray. And then I'll be able to take a membrane to it and take to the area that I've sprayed. So it's going to be particularly difficult, especially where we've got all the joists going into the walls. I'm not going to pull all my ceilings down, so I've got to get access the best way I can. Soil pipes, there's some actually run internally with the house boxings, which I'll take the boxings apart and get the air tightness round behind the boxings and build new boxings. So there's going to be lots of little areas I've got to look at. And the fact is, as with most retrofits, you don't actually know where all the leaks are going to be until you start looking. Even myself, I've done a few retrofits now. I understand air tightness and air membranes. I've been doing it for a number of years. But even so, I still get surprised when all of a sudden there's something I haven't thought of. And it's 9 times out of 10 on a retrofit.
Yeah, it's a real challenge, and there's no set blueprint. The term I use is every house is an innovation project, because you have to figure each house out. For example, the houses on my street, every single one of them is slightly different. Every single one of them. So there are commonalities, and this ties in a little bit with something you mentioned about airtightness, tape, and you mentioned about assessing the product, which product you're going to use, and then also assessing the environment to which it's going to be using. So that could be in the context of the building envelope or where you're placing the airtightness product, but also what climate you are potentially in. I know this is aimed more at people in the UK, but there could be someone who's picked this up and they live in a different climate zone.
Absolutely. Well, we've actually had, over the years, I've had a number of inquiries from other countries. The Africa, Iceland, Norway, the colder climates, but obviously on the coast of one of the areas in Africa, extremely hot. How do we keep the building cool? Because you can, if you look into it, keep a building cool as well as warm. If you've got a airtight thermal envelope and you have the correct type of air ventilation in there, you can keep it cool as well as keep it warm. But you do have to look at those products to do that. And the different products will react differently in different temperatures. There are some liquid membranes that don't react well in heat. There are others that don't react well in cold. So, you have to look at the products and assess which one is best for your particular project.
Yeah, interesting. And one of the things that I'm looking at this picture, I'm thinking about my own house, but this will be common in all houses, that we have a letterbox.
Yes.
So that's a great place to pass. Yeah, great place to start if you're wanting to do some simple, quick hitters on your own house. Is start with your letterbox.
Yes. Well, if you were to have a passive house, you were to do an air test, the letterbox itself, if you did nothing with it, it would fail. Just the size of that letterbox, even if everything else was perfect. So we need to have a look at that, and that gives an identification of how small amount of air you need to actually get not a good result. So if you think the size of a letterbox, they're normally about 65, 70 mil. by 225 mil. That size will give you 1,000 £1,000. So letterboxes are usually outside the house, as in a letterbox outside. But any penetration within the house has to be calculated. We do have people with cat flaps. We also have people with letterboxes. But what they do is they have like an entrance hall. And the entrance hall is the tight bit. And the external area of that is non-passive. So you'd have like an airlock. You'd actually be able to walk into your house, like a porch area, where you'd have cat flaps and everything else if you needed those sort of penetrations. And then you would close the door, enter your house, and that would be your airtight layer. There are a number of different ways you can compensate for these things, but they do all need to be taken into consideration. You can actually now get pet cat flaps, dog flaps, which are actually passive certified. The animal would wear a collar with a chip in it, and the doors would open and then close automatically. And it's all motorized. They're all very, very good. New thing on the market, haven't been out that long, but they work very well.
Wow, that's a great example of me learning every day when I'm speaking with yourself, John. I've not heard of that before, so yeah, really interesting to know that. And one of the things I also thought I'd mention is a loft hatch. You can have a passive house, certified loft hatch.
Loft hatches, you can have a passive certified loft hatch. They usually come with a ladder and everything built in. You would cut a hole, trim it out, and the loft hatch would fit into that. And it comes with its own airtightness tools, if you like, or materials, where it has a sponge or an expanding sponge which you squeeze into the gap and tape over. There's different ways of doing it with different products, but you can get passive certified loft hatches. Yes.
Excellent. And one of the things that I was just thinking about myself is we actually removed our gas fire. And, you know, before I actually got involved in passive house, I had a gas fire fitted. And as a result of that, they put a nice big hole in my wall to make sure that the gas fumes went out of my living room. So now I've removed the gas fire. I now need to consider that. So it's ironic, really. We're using fossil fuels, and then we're having big gaps to let all the emissions go out.
Anything that burns, whether it's gas, solid fuel, whatever it may be, there's going to be a flue, or there's going to be airflow, all of which, once it's removed, has got to be taken care of. And if you deal with the airtightness within that area, don't forget to deal with the insulation.
Yeah. Interesting. And when you mentioned the term airlock, you reminded me of a gentleman that I went to see he's actually designed, he's got a commercial building that he's built to the passive house standards. He's not certified by Passive House, but he were a bit ahead of his time, the chap, and I'm sure we'll be able to share a link here. But he used the airlock, so when people come in and out of the building, there's two doors. So you open the first door to get in, and then the second door is the airlock. So yeah,
the airlock, I term it as an airlock because I don't know how else to describe it. Basically, it is preventing transference of air. So if you have an area with two doors, and one is an airtight door and the other, they could both be airtight doors. But as you go into one and close it, make sure the other one's closed before you open the next one. And then that way you can get, that's particularly useful in high traffic areas. We get a lot of people in, a lot of people out. So what that does is that allows a lot of people in and out with minimum amount of energy or heat loss.
Excellent.
Unlike shops that leave doors open all winter and the heat is blowing away.
Yeah.
It really frustrates me.
Yeah,
It's costing them a fortune to heat the street.
you start to see these things once you've learned. You start to see these things in your day-to-day life when you're going out for a meal. You see, like for me personally, I'm seeing the single glazing. I'm sat having a meal and I've not mentioned anything because I need
Well,
to
you
be
don't
careful.
need that. But the thing is, yes, there's a lot of wasted energy out there, especially with shops and high traffic areas in public. Just throw money in the street. That's all they do.